So today we're going to render chrome. So chrome is a highly reflective finish. If this was a flat surface, it would be like a mirror. You'd see everything reflected perfectly. In this case, it's a cylinder, so everything is in the surroundings is just sort of being converted into these lines. So that's how we're seeing it, and that's how we're going to attempt to render our chrome finishes today, giving the idea that it's of the highly reflective nature. Because it is so reflective, and it does have, wherever you have it, you're going to be getting all of those things reflected into your chrome. We're going to set our chrome for the first few. I'm going to set it in the desert where there's less interference. So the materials I'm going to use today are a yellow marker Y17, E33, E15. That's because these are the ones I happen to have here. You might have something different. You're just looking for something that will give you a sand kind of look. I'm also using the Posca, the white Posca pen, white pencil, a brown watercolor pencil. I'm going to use chalk pastels with some cotton wool and a knife to scrape off the pastel dust. So that's how we're going to use the pastel. We're not putting the pastel directly onto our work. We're going to scrape it off, mix it with a little bit of flour. Normally you would use talcum powder, but I don't have any, but I think the flour works just as well. And then we're going to use a bit of cotton wool to lift it up, lift that pastel dust off, and then use that onto our work. I'll show you how we do that a little bit later. So let's get started. There's a template for this on Canvas, and I have traced that. So you could do that yourselves. If you can print it onto bleed proof, that would be even better. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, we need to see where the horizon falls on this cylinder. So it's not in the center, but we can work it out where it would go. So we need to have a look at how this side is happening here, what's happening with this. So we're just going to draw this box around it that's in perspective. And then we're going to draw a line from one point to the other here, and then we're going to draw one that would be across the middle in correct perspective, and that would mean that that's round about where our horizon line is. So I'm going to draw that in, making sure that it goes off into the correct vanishing point. And that's going to be our horizon line. So I'm going to use the yellow marker to start with to create the sand. And with the sand on this horizon line, what's going to happen is as it gets closer to the horizon line, it actually gets darker. So it's lighter underneath here, and it gets darker as it moves towards the horizon line there. So I've just got that yellow down first. I'm now going to put down the beige. So this is going to sort of dull it down a little bit because it is a little bit bright, that yellow. And I might just leave a little bit there, not go all the way to the end, because I want that to be where my reflected light is. Because the edges on this cylinder aren't completely sharp, they're a little bit rounder, we have a little bit of distortion as it gets closer to those points. So I'm sort of trying to make it sort of lift up a little bit there on the edges. It's going a little bit round to show that form. So this brown that I'm using here is dark suntan. It's not really that dark, but I might end up giving it a few layers to darken it up. what you can also use is your brown pencil, coloured pencil. So as I've said, I've got a watercolour pencil here. So what I'm also going to do is put a little bit of sort of shrubbery, because on the horizon line we probably do see it's not going to be completely flat. We might see some plants, maybe a little bare sort of tree there. And I'm going to just darken up the horizon in general. So don't be too uniform with this. We want to make it sort of really quite random, like the Australian bush, the Australian desert. So I'm just going to get that brown marker again and go over what I've got here just to sort of smooth it out a little bit. I'm not going to go all the way down because I want it to be much darker there at the horizon. I might get the beige now and just clean that up a little bit as well, just to get it to blend in a little bit more. Okay, now with this side, we don't actually see the horizon line going in the side here, do we? It's quite flat. So if we have a look at it like it is in our illustration here, it's just a flat surface. It's actually much lighter than what we see on the rest of it. So I'm just going to keep that in mind. So I will start with the yellow again. And I'm just going to keep this really quite smooth. Don't want to see too much line work happening in this. So it's pretty much overall the same kind of tone. May even get lighter at the side, but that's probably also because it's a little bit scratched. Okay, I'm just going to leave that like that for now. What I'm going to do now is the sky. So for the sky, we have chosen a blue pastel that I think looks like the sky. I've scraped it onto this spare piece of paper here, and I'm just using a little bit of this flour just to help it sort of glide a little bit more smoothly. So I'll mix that up with that blue pastel that I'd already shaved off before. And I'm going to lift it off with the cotton wool. I think the talcum powder does work better actually for this, but see how we go. Probably could have been a little bit darker, so what I could do is also try and mix maybe a darker blue in with that one. Okay, I've just mixed up a little bit more of a darker blue, so I'm going to mix that in with this blue here and see if that gives us a bit more tone, because it's a very light sky at this stage. Yeah, that's probably a little bit better, isn't it? Okay, so as you can see, there's a little bit of residue. With the sky, it's darker at the top and it gets lighter as it gets closer to the horizon. So let's just see if we can make that a little bit more obvious. Okay, so as I was saying, there's a bit of residue, so you can get your kneadable razor if you have one. The kneadable erasers are really good for this because they lift off pastel dust really well. So I'm going to remove it from that side face there and remove it from everywhere else that's where it's on the marker. Now, don't be tempted to use your marker again, because what will happen if it goes onto this pastel dust, it will lift it off and it will do bad things to your nib. So it's best to try and get all your marker work done before on your pastel. What I'm going to do is put in a little bit of white pencil around these edges, because as I was saying before, they're really quiet. You can see that there's the light sort of really hitting those edges. So I'm going to lighten that off around here. We could put also a little bit of reflected light in here. Might just lighten that off a little bit as well. And to get some real sort of hot spots, I'm going to use the Posca marker, because you know, as we can see, there are lots of little white little sort of hot spots on there. Okay. So I almost forgot the best part. We can use this kneadable eraser to also add clouds into our sky. So I'm just going to sort of knead it a little bit and dab some clouds in there. And there you have a cylinder out in the desert made of chrome. With the other two objects in that top row, I'd like you to also render those in the desert. So we're going to do the ball next, and then we'll do this object here. The ball is, as you can see, very reflective as well. What's happening here is this is sort of flattening out, but then it's going up into a real arc either side. So we want to try and get that look as well. Obviously in the room here I can see myself reflected plus all of the objects, so it does make it much easier to put it out in the desert. With the second row, what I'd like you to do with those ones is render those as though they are black and white. So they don't need to be out in the desert, but you can just render them like you would see them. If you have a look at these, most of what you see is reflected in greys. So I'd like you to try that with that second row there. So not recreating the chrome in the desert, you're going to now show it just using the grey markers. With the bottom row, you can do, I'd like you to try 3 different ways of rendering that one. So it's just having a look at what you think is the quickest, best way of representing the tap. So you might want to try using pencil. You may try using doing one in marker, one you might try doing in the desert. So you could also use the pastel, or you could use pencil once again to do the top. Let's have a look what else we've got here. I think, yeah, so if you wanted to try it in pencil, or one with pastel at the top and then marker in some of the other parts, just have a go at seeing what works best for that.